they're saying that there's a lack of inventory for land. So what's that going to cause in the future is a lack of new construction in the area because there's a lack of land, which then causes demand to go up because there's no supply. And so what happens then is people try to sell, they have nowhere to go. So it's going to be a supply issue, I think, for a long time. And I think that's what's really going to drive the market in our area.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Shawn and Matt Show. My name is Matt, that is Shawn, and welcome to our show. Shawn, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about 4 market experts sharing their opinion on when the best time to buy is in the next couple of years and whether we agree or disagree with those viewpoints. And spoiler alert, the person asked real estate agents and mortgage brokers. So maybe you can glean what type of answers they're going to be giving on the best time to buy. Hint, hint. We're also going to be talking about Dave Ramsey warning you to avoid this risky real estate trend. Should you listen to him? So, risky real estate trend, Shawn. What do you think it is?
I don't know.
And then we're also going to get into in or out, whether Shawn battles in or out on 3 properties across the United States. All of them starting above $50 million.
I'm in on all of them, I think.
We will. I think you may be, but let's start with an article from Parade. So this is 4 marketing experts being asked when the best time is to buy a house. First, they consulted with Mustafa Urek, a licensed real estate agent with Exit Realty in Island Elite in New York. And, Urek said that he always asks the question back to the purchaser, what is your motivation? Because if he doesn't understand the client's why, he won't know their how. Buying a home is never a one-size-fits-all approach. So when asked the question, when is the best time to buy a year, Mr. Urek, wants to learn a little bit more. Shawn, when you hear the question or when you're asked, when is the best time of year to buy a house, what do you typically say?
I mean, one, it depends on your intention. That's number one. But it fluctuates every year. What's the best time to buy? What's your goal? Is it to have an abundance of what to look at, or is it to get the best value? And that's the big thing. If you want to buy when everybody else is buying and when most of the inventory comes on in our area, it's the spring market from late March to June. That's your best time to buy if you want a lot to look at. If you want to get the best deal when no one else is looking, August and probably like November, December. Those are 3 slowest months that we see every year. And it's seasonal every year. But as we've seen in the last couple of years, it's so hard to predict what's going to happen. And now what we're seeing is low inventory. So what is the best time to buy? When your life tells you to is number one. If you need to buy right now and you want to move to Tallahassee, Florida, then let's get you there. Don't worry about what the market's doing because you're never going to be able to time it perfectly. So there's a lot that goes into this. It's really difficult to know exactly time the market and say what's the best time. We've seen interest rates go up. Interest rates were hovering around 6.25% for a long time. Then last week they popped up again, closer to 7%. We thought, hey, they were pretty stable, and I think a lot of people were getting used to the fact that interest rates were stabilized. And so we started seeing all these buyers pop in again. But now, what if interest rates keep going up? Well, it's going to slow down the market again. Buyers aren't going to be able to afford the houses that they were able to afford before. But man, it's really on supply. Supply and interest rates are going to tell you when the best time to buy is. And if you're okay with those two things, if you're okay with the limited supply and a higher interest rate, then it's a good time to buy, I mean, it's such a loaded question, at this point, right?
Another person they asked is Peter Papazoglu with the mortgage guys, RCG Mortgage in Long Island, and he said it's not about the time of year or where the interest rates are. Is there a best time of year to buy? I wouldn't phrase it like that. It's a matter of when the right house comes up and ensuring that you can comfortably make those payments. And this is a lender saying there's not a best time to buy. The best time to buy is when you can comfortably afford the payments, not when you can put 0% down because the interest rates are down, and this would be a squeeze on the old family budget. It's when is the most comfortable time to buy.
Yeah, I mean, I use myself as an example all the time because I've gone through this, and I looked at houses for a long time in Arlington and the areas that I wanted to be in. And it took me years to find the right house. But at the same time, I wasn't ready personally because I had to sell my house and able to afford the one that I wanted. So my perfect timing was when I sold my house and when my life was saying, all right, it's time to go. And more my wife was saying, it's time to go. So first ask yourself, what is the personal reason that you're moving? What is your timeline? If it's in the next 6 months, well, you got to buy in the next 6 months. I think it's more personal than it is market driven. As we're watching these markets fall in certain areas, then, take this all with a grain of salt. But when's the bottom going to hit? We don't know. Maybe now is the best time. So everybody's going to have a different opinion. Every area is going to be different as far as cyclical, seasonal values and the trends. And, if I was buying in Ocean City, I would want to buy right when the rental market started, which isn't right now, so like California, different.
Well, let me ask you this. If you're selling in Ocean City, if you're a seller in Ocean City, aren't you trying to squeeze out the last rental season and then you sell after that? Or do you sell right before knowing that you might have more eyeballs on it?
Personally, if I was selling, and I'm not an Ocean City expert, but if I was thinking I have to get rid of this thing, I'm choosing the best time to sell. So I would think that when people start vacationing, they're going to be like, man, I want to buy. That's when people are like, I'm here. I want to buy something. That's when I'm selling.
So you kind of sacrifice.
You're going to have to sacrifice a little bit. Because people that are trying to sell and they put their houses on in the fall or right after the rental market, they're sitting,
right.
And there's a lot more inventory.
So another couple questions they asked this group of individuals: will 2023 be a good time to buy a house? They asked Evan Russell, also of the mortgage guys, will 2023 be a good time to buy a house? Shawn, he said, with higher interest rates causing lower demand, you're not looking at waiving inspections or appraisals, putting yourself at potential risk or having to offer well above asking prices. Simply put, it's less competitive for current buyers. The sooner you buy and invest in real estate, the more equity and wealth you can compound over time. Now, I think that's true to some extent, but it's also a little bit of realtor mortgage, sales speak, where you're basically just telling the masses as soon as you're in, that's a better chance you have of building equity and wealth.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. The sooner you do buy, you're not paying rent. You're paying down and gaining wealth. But man, I had something.
Another advantage of buying in 2023, what Mr. Russell said is there's always the option to refinance, which we've talked about before. Since it's less competitive to purchase right now, even though getting in rates is higher than they've been in the past, you can immediately refinance when interest rates come down. Ding, 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 red flag. A prospective buyer sitting on the sidelines now and waiting for rates to come down will have to find the house first to take advantage of the lower rates. If you already own the house and are building that equity, you immediately get to take advantage of that and are likely in a better spot overall than when you purchase the home. Now, I like this last part where it says, if you're in the house before rates start dropping, because if you're sitting on the sideline waiting for rates to drop, well, Shawn, what's going to happen? Rates are going to drop, prices are going to go up, and then there's going to be more and more buyer activity. So, let's get back to the point of you can always refinance when interest rates come down. You can.
And this is a good point. There's a lot of lenders out there that are now offering the fact that, hey, if you buy right now and you refinance in the next, I think it was 12 months or 24 months, we will waive all of our fees, waive some of the fees at least. So they're trying to say, all right, we understand it's a pinch right now for you, but we will help you in the future if you just, buy now or refinance later. So listen, I bought it 6.25. I had rates there. I was fine with it. I just bought something within my means. I refinanced it later. Actually, I was an adjustable at that time, and it adjusted down. I didn't even have to refinance it. It just adjusted down, so my payment kept going down and down and down. And that's one time that it actually worked in my favor. What I want to say though is, again, I mean, every area is different. But in talking to agents and knowing the market here and talking to builders and what they're seeing, think about this for 1 second. We have very low inventory. And what we are seeing is once the good stuff comes on, it goes right off. If it's priced right, shows well, it's going to sell. What builders are finding now is hard. It's very hard for them to find land. So Vienna, Arlington, these are the hot spots of builders. And it's getting very competitive. And I drove through Vienna the other day. I mean, it's just like boom, boom. Every other house is being blown out. But they're saying that there's a lack of inventory for land. So what's that going to cause in the future is a lack of new construction in the area because there's a lack of land, which then causes demand to go up because there's no supply. And so what happens then is people try to sell, they have nowhere to go. So it's going to be a supply issue, I think, for a long time. And I think that's what's really going to drive the market in our area. And so the best time to buy when you're financially able, and you'll figure it out from there. I mean, if you can afford the payment for the next 30 years, buy, get comfortable, gain some equity, and then move on.
The best time to buy. They also ask, will 2024 be a better time to buy than 2023? They say the only thing more uncertain than the housing market in 2023 is the housing market in 2024 because so many things can happen. But that being said, I love this one. Many real estate agents and loan officers alike are in agreement that the best time to buy is now, given that you're ready and able. I can only imagine Ramit Sethi is just rolling around laughing at real estate agents saying that the best time to buy is now. Michael Wright, licensed salesperson with Douglas Elliman Real Estate, explains, timing the market for your primary residence is an excuse not to act. It is much easier to find value in the market we're in than wait for the market to change. Let's focus on what we can control.
Yeah, and this is an example. In the last 20 years, when was it a bad time to buy? 2008, right? One time. If you bought before then, your value probably went up, came back down, and then now is way up again. So they always say that real estate is a long-term investment. You don't want to try to do this for 2 years and then see if you can turn a profit. It's probably not going to happen unless you're flipping. So you want to be careful. And I mean, if I would have bought 10 years ago, I'd have been good. If I would have bought 15 years ago, I'd probably been still okay, even though there was a drop. It's up now. So if you're buying now, yes, it could go down a little bit, but in the long term, it's going to go up. It's just like stocks. It's just like your investments. The investors always say, listen, you're buying all the time. It doesn't matter if it's, we're watching this market, but you're buying hopefully when it's lower, but you're consistently buying. So it's consistent and your profits are going up. And that's kind of what you should think about in real estate as well. Just focus on what you're going to buy, if you can buy it, and your life tells you to.
Last question. Michael Wright says, in response to when is the most expensive time to buy a house? We always talk about when's the best time. When is the most expensive time, Shawn? Michael Wright says, the most expensive time to buy is when you're forced to make a decision quickly by waiting until your current lease is about to expire or listing your current home for sale without a clear path forward. In a perfect world, a client would speak with me 6 to 12 months prior to their move.
Yeah, I mean, there's never really the perfect time to buy. I think you will overpay when you are in crunch time, right?
We've all heard of the reload clients that come in for a weekend and they say, I got to buy this weekend, and their agent's showing 8 houses on Friday, 12 on Saturday, and then they're going to recap the top 6 on Sunday. And are we really going to be buying a house in 72 hours? People do it all the time, but it's just such a incredible way to purchase a house that I don't know how some people do it.
Yeah, some people come in here, they don't even know the areas, right? They don't even know, in my opinion, if you're moving into a brand new area, wouldn't you rather like rent for 6 months to a year to figure out where you want to be to make the right investment instead of a hurried investment? I mean, because if you don't like the area that you just bought in after 6 months, you're stuck. But if you would just hold off, cool off a little bit, let's figure it out, and then wait and buy at the right time. So, my opinion, yeah, you're going to pay more when it's competitive, and it's always competitive, usually, typically in the spring.
Look at you going on the record saying that renting might be an option.
It's the truth. I've rented before, and I had to rent for 2 months in that place. But like, listen to this. I sold at the worst time, right? My last purchase and sale, Lake Barcroft, I sold my house. It was the day everything shut down for COVID, right? It was the worst timing, but it was like I had the property set, right? But when I bought a couple of weeks later in Arlington. And so I sold at a bad time, but I bought at a really good time.
It's
so
usually
yeah,
one or the other.
Yeah, just don't wait, because if you wait, then you just lost out on a ton of equity. If I would have waited, I would not have been able to afford it. So you got to go.
You probably would have gotten more for your house, but maybe the Arlington house would have shot up more.
I think the Arlington house definitely is higher, shot up more in the long run.
All right, let's move on to the second article. This comes to us from the Motley Fool. Dave Ramsey warns you to avoid this risky real estate trend should you listen to him. Shawn, this is what people are doing. A little down payment hack, if you will. I don't know what corner of the internet thought that this was a good idea, but let's take a look. Some lenders, Shawn, some mortgage lenders offer down payment loans for real estate, but Dave Ramsey calls this risky. You can get a loan for your loan, Shawn. There are some huge downsides to a down payment loan, including possibly ending up underwater on your loan and increasing your housing payments. Now, Shawn, we're talking about buyers that if they're looking for a down payment loan, you gotta wonder how much they're putting down. Were they thinking about putting 0% down, 3% down, 5% down on a loan, on a debt where they're going to be taking out hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and they're looking for a personal loan? Have you seen this before? Have you come across this before? Is this even legal? And what are your thoughts? Do you agree with Dave Ramsey that this is a very risky endeavor?
I absolutely agree, and I don't even know if it exists, to be honest. I mean, let's think about this logically. If I go and get a loan for my down payment, okay, I got some cash now that I can use now as a down payment on a loan, and let's call it a $500,000 house. I'm putting 20% down. So I got a $100,000 loan. Is that right? Yeah. So I have $100K. All right. So now I've got to do a loan application with the lender, and the lender's going through and they're like, okay, see that you've got this debt. You've got a debt of $100K. So what are you going to, what is that? Oh, I've got it sitting in cash. Okay. Well, you've got to repay that debt at some point, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, that is your debt to income. That goes right into your debt to income ratio. So it doesn't matter where you're getting the money from. You still got to have the means to buy the house. And so getting a personal loan for $100,000 to buy a $500,000 house, why wouldn't you just go do a 93% loan or a 95% loan or 100? They're out there. There are programs out there where you can do 100% financing, 95% financing. You can get a 95% loan up to over $1 million in some areas. So why in the world would you get a personal loan? And the thing is, the personal loan is probably a lot higher in interest rate. So, when I first bought, I did an 80-10-10, which means I had 10% down, I had a 10% second loan, and an 80% first loan.
Can you explain what a second loan is?
So back in the day, I mean, I don't see this that often anymore, but now what a lender will do is say, we're going to give you 90% and you're going to put 10% down. But before, what we would do is, all right, well, this lender can only do the 80%, so we're going to find you a second loan because there's investors. And investors will say, well, I'm only going to hold the 80% loan. I'm not going to do anything more risky than 80%. Well, then you've got your riskier investors that are willing to take on a riskier investment, and they'll say, all right, well, I'll do a 10% second loan. So in the hierarchy of if you foreclose, the 80% loan is going to get paid back first, and the 10% loan is going to get paid back second. So if you do go to foreclosure, this is a much riskier loan on the bottom because they might not get paid in a foreclosure. And I've seen it many times in short sales and foreclosures. So now what they started doing is saying, all right, well, instead of doing two different loans, we're going to give you a higher amount, so lower down payment, higher loan, say call it 90%, but your interest rate's going to be slightly higher because it's a slightly riskier loan. And so naturally, if you're doing an 80%, 90%, 100% loan, 100% is much more risky in value. So if your market's going fluctuating and it comes down, you're much more at risk of not being able to pay back that loan. So naturally, your interest rate has to be higher for that. Where you can really do well would be like a VA. A VA does really good programs for 100% financing. You pay a VA funding fee. So really, there are fees for this. There are costs to this. There are interest rates rises for this. But the last thing you want to do is get a personal loan and then do an application with the lender. And they're like, oh, you're paying 8% on a personal loan that I could have given you for 6%. Like, let's think about this. I think the first thing you need to do before you ever get out any sort of loan or money from anybody is, if you're planning on buying a house, is talk to a lender. Talk to a good, reputable lender, because they're going to have programs that you might not know about. And we don't even know about, right? There's first-time homebuyer programs. There are so many. There are low-income programs. I mean, there's so many. So you just talk to a lender that knows what they're talking about, and a reputable one that you get a referral from, and they will have solutions for you.
I think if you have to take out a loan in order to take out a loan, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And maybe these people did think that they were talking to a reputable lender, and the lender said, by the way, if you can get some liquid cash, like $25K or something from a loan, I'll pretend not to see it, and then we can fund your down payment that way. So we don't work with them, but there could be lenders out there that for some reason permit this practice. And it's even though the era of paperless or docless loan approvals has passed, no doc loans, there are still lenders out there that will do what it takes to close a loan, right?
Of course.
They're going to do what it takes. Just like there's real estate agents out there that'll do what it takes, even if it means, fudging some numbers. And unfortunately, that stuff does exist. So,
yeah, there's options out there. A lot of times when people are cash poor, they'll get a loan or a gift from their parents or from a relative or something. Gifts are the way to go. If you have somebody that's willing to gift you something for a down payment, I mean, that's what I see over and over again. You don't want to go into debt to get into more debt.
Well, the last thing is, what happens when you sell the property? And let's say the property value goes down. So the property goes down. You only put 3% down. Now you're underwater on the property. Maybe you sold after 2 years. You haven't paid back the personal loan, because you can take out personal loans for like 3 or 4 years. So now you have to bring money to the table to get out of the property, and then you still owe payments on the personal loan. And now you're paying off 2 different debts at 2 different interest rates, 2 different headaches. You got it all compounding.
That's a really good point, because the personal loan is not, there's no collateral. The collateral would be what? What's the collateral? I mean, they're going to look at your bank accounts again and say, all right, how much do you earn? Okay, we'll give you an X amount. How much are you making? What's your debt to income? That's going to say what your interest rate is. So the key that you just said there is that personal loan is not tied to the property. So if you're kind of one of these people that are like, oh, I'll just pay it back later, and then you go to sell your property and that's all paid off, but you still got this personal loan. Did you make any money? Now you're stuck with a personal loan. So I don't think that's the right way to go. And I had another point and I lost it.
Should we move on, and then you can think about it, and then we can go back?
Yeah, dang it. It was good. I thought it was good.
You always have good points. You're going to wake up in the middle of the night and scream it
was.
to your wife, and your wife's going to be like, what are you talking about? Go back to bed.
What was it? Go ahead.
All right, let's move on to in or out, whether Shawn Battle is in or out on 3 properties across the United States. Shawn, let's actually start in our own backyard of Mclean, Virginia. Rooftop putting green, Turkish baths, $50 million Mclean home would set new bar for amenities. So this comes to us from Urban Turf. This is a rendering of a new house. It hasn't even been built yet, but it was listed for $50 million by Long and Foster. Fuad Talat sells just about every high-priced house in Mclean. Just if you have a $50 million house, he's probably going to be the listing agent. So it's in the Gold Coast of Mclean. Actually, it's a little bit north of the Gold Coast, where George Mason, the GW Parkway is up near. Langley, 7020 Green Oak Drive. You have 5 acres, 425 feet of Potomac River access. The comments in the MLS only say 3% co-op. There's no other comments that are there. They have yet to pick the builder, which gives you an idea of where they're at with the building process, but they believe it's worthy of the $50 million price tag, which the house will include rock climbing, a private disco, cigar room, beauty salon, a champagne room, a temperature-controlled 3,000 bottle wine cellar. It's a 6-bedroom home designed by Design Studio 4. Shawn, are you in or out on a Mclean to-be-built mansion for $50 million?
This place looks insane. Matt, I mean, it looks amazing. It looks really cool. That's pretty awesome, overlooking the Potomac River. $50 million in Mclean, though, right? My problem is that you're an outlier. You're a complete outlier. I mean, there's some high price places around there, but I'm not spending $50 million in Mclean personally. I'm not. I will keep my house and not go for that because I feel like the bar is set really high for that, and I don't know. It's just not my. It's not pulling me. It's not pulling me. Now, I like the fact that you're above the Potomac, but you're also going to be on a humongous hill, and you're probably not going to walk down to the Potomac. So I would rather take that investment and put it on the water or something. So I would say I'm out, Matt.
That's the thing. The Mclean houses there, they don't have a yard. It's just kind of a drop-off. Now, you say it's an outlier. Shawn, there have been properties that have sold for upwards of $50 million. The childhood house of Jackie Kennedy, Marywood, was listed for 40-ish million, and I'm blanking on what it sold for. And then there was also a house a couple years ago that sold for more than $40 million in the Arlington part of Mclean. I believe it's unique up there where it had a Arlington zip code, but a Mclean address, or is like vice versa, where it had
just washes right into each other.
Right.
Yeah.
You think Dan Snyder's a little upset that his house is no longer the most expensive property?
Of course
You think he's a little peeved?
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's got
I am so in on the $50 million Mclean estate.
I'll come visit. That's awesome, man. I love the amenities, like you were saying, a rock wall, that's cool stuff.
Super modern. I mean, it's an estate. It looks like an incredible property. You're right on the cliffs over the Potomac River. I'm excited to see what happens once it gets built. You think it's going to be $50 million in 3 years when they're still building it? You think the price tag is going to jump a little bit?
Well, that's the thing is, how can it be, right? We saw what happened to the one, right? But although he kept adding to it, but we've also seen what happens to supply chain issues and cost of construction materials and things. And so I wonder if there's like a clause in there, right? Like, oh, we're going to, 50 million, but this is construction. I don't know. Maybe you're going to score a deal if you go in now and 50 million, and in 3 years, that builder's hurting because, hey, costs were a lot more. I don't know.
Pull an Ellen DeGeneres and just start buying, $50 million properties and selling them the next year for, $80 million.
The place is sick. You might be able to convince me, but.
All right, well, let's move on. I am in for the record. Okay. But let's move on to Malibu, where we find ourselves in the past couple weeks. This is a Feng Shui-inspired property listed for $68.8 million. Wow. 5 beds, 7 baths, 8,000 square feet on the water, Shawn. It's simply a modern masterpiece and one of the most spectacular homes of glass and steel along the southern coastline. Think Guggenheim in Malibu. So you have quite the interior, and then it has quite the architecture as well from the outside. And hey, if you want to walk down to the water, you can certainly walk down to the water in your Feng Shui inspired house. It was on the market in 2015 for a little less than $68 million, but apparently the sellers weren't motivated then. I guess maybe they're motivated now at a much higher price point. Shawn, are you in or out on the Feng Shui property for $68 million in Malibu?
This is a tough one. I mean, geez, having your own beach. At first I was thinking, man, this is maybe a little bit too modern for me, a little bit on the modern side. But at the same time, I mean, how can you pass up something that's so cool looking? right on the beach with your own private beach. I'm buying it. I'm buying it, Matt.
I am in on this. Look at this living
Yeah.
room picture. This looks like a level in like a James Bond 007 like GoldenEye. Like I feel like I've walked on this terrace before, on my N64 trying to shoot at my opponent. It has the all marble. You can jump down to the the level before.
It looks like a hotel lobby in a way too. Some modern hotel lobby.
That's usually not a compliment, right?
Yeah, I know, but it's real big open air. It might feel a little cold in spaces, but I mean it's cool.
The thing about this is you have neighbors. You're so close to your neighbors. I mean, apparently you do have some acreage and you do have the beach access, but you don't move to Malibu if you want to get away from people.
That's right. This is your chance.
Well, I'm still in on it.
Yeah, okay.
It looks like a sick house, and
That little thing in the front there?
the little thing in
that circle.
this thing.
Oh, is that like a ball pool?
I have no. I'm sure the listing description would tell you, but I mean, it's you have artwork outside. I mean,
yeah, it's neat.
You got this big old dog out here. Yeah, you got a bunch of cool things out there. All right, let's move on to our last property. This comes to us from Realtor.com. Waterfront Wonder Crown, Connecticut's most expensive home at $150 million. So, Shawn, this is 35 miles, only 35 miles from Midtown Manhattan, and it's called Copper Beach Farm in Greenwich, Connecticut. It is listed for $150 million, 8 bedrooms, 8.5 bathrooms, and you have over a mile of coastline with an estate that spans 50 acres, and then you also have your own private island. It is listed for $150 million. Are you in or out on Copper Beach Farm?
I am in on Copper Beach Farm. This place looks freaking amazing.
All right, you don't want $50 million in Mclean, but you want $150 million in Connecticut.
It's on the Potomac, man. I can go out in the Potomac on my kayak right now. I want that. I want to go out to my private island.
Your grass tennis courts.
My grass tennis
your
courts, my greenhouse, my long driveway.
Your 2,000-foot driveway.
Yeah. You're on what body of water?
I was telling Shawn that it looks like the driveway from Knives Out. He's never seen Knives Out, so you got to comment down below. Should Shawn watch Knives Out? I think he should.
Knives Out. I mean, the pool, everything about it is just cool.
I mean, it's landscaped to the tens. The landscaper
is
just raking it in on this property.
Wow.
You got the pool, and then the listing agent says you have a private island, so you can literally paddle out. You can, in a rowboat, you can paddle out to the island, have a picnic on your private island, and watch the sunset from the Long Island Sound. Are you kidding me? That
amazing.
Sounds amazing.
Think of the fishing, Matt. Think of the fishing right there.
I am not thinking about the fishing. Just
That's all I think about.
Chilling out here at the pool and hanging out on the private island.
Oh yeah, no, I love it. I think it's a masterpiece, baby. Let's buy it.
$150 million. I don't think we give Connecticut enough credit for some of the incredible properties that they have. I think Connecticut is apparently just catering to the really, really high end, and it's really tough to kind of be that middle of the road buyer. I guess you could say that in a lot of markets, but $150 million in Connecticut. This is legit. Apparently, it has some history. 1893, New York City native John Hamilton Gorley bought the land and built the main house. Who cares about the history? Maybe it's interesting, maybe it's not, but I'm more interested in the pretty pictures.
Yeah, me too. I think it looks great.
All right, well, let us know if you are in or out on these properties, and if you have any comments, be sure to drop them in the comment section down below for Shawn and myself. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Take care.